do this, but can I get a side of ranch?
Hey, you know what this needs? Is a little ranch.
I actually specifically remember asking for a side of ranch. Yeah.
Can I get some ranch?
Oh, everything is wonderful. But can I get a side of ranch? Let's get into. Well, thank you first of all for being on the podcast.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun.
How was your shift last night?
Last night was pretty good. It was pretty. It wasn't anything crazy. When I came in at 7:30, which is kind of a late shift. When I came in, the restaurant looked crazy. You know, when you walk in, on the front it's just filled with people, and you just get that anxiety over you. You're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Something is going wrong somewhere, I bet. You know.
Yeah.
Especially at a high volume restaurant like ours. But you know, came in, and as you saw, everybody was kind of sitting around, and
a lot of campers.
A lot of campers, especially with the sports games. You know, you had, I think, just
the Dodgers
just Dodgers game last night.
They're the worst.
The night before was football and baseball, which was another story.
And somebody complained and made us put baseball on.
Yeah, there were a lot of people complaining that night, and it was actually Thursday and yesterday were the same deals for me. I came in, a lot of people were sitting down, and then once the games are over, everyone clears out.
Yeah.
And then you get the late night people trickling in, and I made about $110.
Nice.
Just about what you made too. You said, right?
Well, yeah. What were your sales?
I think they were between 7 and 800.
Yeah, that was about mine too. Which is funny because we should have made at least $160 if people tipped 20%. But
yeah, true.
You know.
Well, the 110 is after tip out and everything, and you know, I.
Oh, that's true. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but still, you're right. I will say that the tips aren't very consistent.
No.
I don't think they've ever been. I don't think they've ever been consistent in any restaurant I've ever worked at. But
my night, I'm so over cheap people. Especially, there's nothing worse than Dodger fans. And I'm sorry if you're a Dodger fan, but you guys tip like shit.
You do.
You do.
That's why the other night I said to you when people were complaining about what TV had the Dodgers game on, I actually had Dodgers fans leaving. They were like tables that sat down, and then when they realized we weren't putting the Dodgers game on the TV that had the football game on it, the bigger TV, they were actually just closing out and leaving. And I was kind of just like, you know what? I'm okay if some of you leave. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, you know, you get some people that are really nice, but just, I just, you know what it is with me? I think just with, like, and this is why I don't work at a Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah.
Probably not supposed to drop names, but this is why I don't work
as long
at...
as it's not ours, we're fine.
Yeah, this is why I don't work at, like, sports bars particularly.
Yeah.
Because I think sports fans just tend to be a little bit more rowdy and forget kind of like, you know, forget about the environment around them, and they just get so consumed in the game, and then it's like, you know, oh, get me a beer, I want food, blah, 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 and then the whole, like, you know, then, hey, we're at a restaurant, you know, take care of your server type thing goes out the window sometimes too, and, you know.
Having worked in a sports bar for even just this one that we're at right now for the last 4.5 years, there's certain teams where you're like, the second you see them walk in with those logos on, you're like, great.
Yep.
It'd be Dodger fans and Oakland Raider fans.
Raider fans too, yeah. Particularly, I see more Dodgers fans where we work, and you know, when I see them come in, it's usually just like, oh gosh, here we go. Here it is. Yeah. And then whenever I come in and hear, oh, we got the Dodger game on tonight, I'm just like, oh,
it's like a little piece of you dies.
A little piece of me does die.
Yeah.
so when I come in and there's no games on or anything, I'm usually prepared for a more chill night.
Yeah.
Some more easygoing people. No one's screaming or anything. You know. So,
and it's oh man. You know what's crazy is soccer fans tip better than football and baseball fans.
Soccer fans are usually, you know what I realized about this funny thing about soccer fans is like, I feel like football fans and baseball fans are usually like, they're just, the energy is always super rowdy, whether something's happening or not. But with soccer fans, I notice it's just, I could be wrong, but what I've noticed from soccer fans is that they usually just kind of like, they just kind of sit there, and they just kind of watch, and and the only time they make noise is when someone scores a goal, or something happens. It's like, but they're just pretty chill. They sit there, they're like, oh, I'm okay, do you need something? No. And then when something happens, they go crazy for a couple of seconds, and then they're just kicking it again. So I think I can do the soccer fans.
Yeah.
You know, y'all are okay.
Soccer fans, literally, when the World Cup was on, I would have soccer fans would come in, and we'd have soccer already on the TV, but they would tip me, like, just to keep it on with the volume. And I'm like, it's going to stay on, but thank you, I'll take this anyway, you know?
Sure.
And
why not?
You get them, every 4 years, really? Because that's when the big
games are on, yeah.
But they're better to me. They're better than even football fans. Like, I used to get excited about Sunday football working, and then you start working it, and you're like, oh, cool. These people fucking
Well,
suck.
I haven't known a Sunday football shift in a while because I actually stopped working on Sundays for just quality of life.
Yeah,
a long time
smart.
ago, and that was not even just for the sports, but just Sunday for me was just always a day where I just like. If I ever had to go to work on Sunday, I was just more miserable than usual.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, I don't know, just for some reason, going in on a Sunday was just, that was another piece of me dying.
Yeah.
So I took that off completely, so I haven't had to worry about that in a long time, but I can see, the Sunday football madness, because the games are just on all day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do have to say, it's not hard, because they come in and they sit, and once they sit, you get them their kind of initial round, and then they just watch the game. So it's like,
Yeah.
Well,
you know what else it is about Sundays that I don't like? And I think this is a general thing, too, not even just sports, but on Sundays I notice you get more full families coming in. And the thing with, like, I like when you get, like 3 friends that come in, or 2 people, or, like, 4 adults. Or when you get families, for some reason, like, when I see, like, kids, parents, maybe a grandparent, it's like you just know that there's going to be so much more to do for that table, because you have all these different ages. The kids are going to need something, the grandparents are going to need something cut up into little pieces, and the parents are going to want something to take care of somebody else, and it's just like that's why Sundays to me are all so difficult, because you have more families coming in, and every table seems like its own huge project. And it's just insanity.
Yes, the second you see more than I'd say more than 4 people sit down at a table, you're like, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's good. Sometimes if you have just like maybe 6 women that are out on a girls' night or something, and they're all like in their mid 40s or something, and they're just hanging out. Real easy.
A bunch of cougars is what?
A bunch of cougars. They're all sitting there, they're drinking, they're getting food, that's it. But then when you have, like, a 3-year-old and, like, a teenager on his iPad, and then, like, 2 parents that are fighting, and then, the grandmother that's in from, visiting from Brooklyn or something, and then the neighbor, it's a friend, and it's just like you have all ages, at one table, and everybody needs something different, and it's just, that's kind of where that's what I think of when I think about Sundays, and that's why I'm glad I don't work them anymore.
No, you're 100% right. I agree. Sundays are just, it's like the best day to have off. It's just... It
is, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's that, it's kind of like the end/beginning of a new week, and then some people are religious and they take that day to themselves, or it's just, there's just something, regardless of what you do or who you are, there's something about Sunday that's just very calming and very, kind of like gives you this sense of relaxation, and a day that you want to just kind of do nothing on.
Yeah.
The thing about, I guess, my job right now is having such good friends and living so close there.
Yeah.
I find myself in there anyway sometimes when I'm not working. Yeah. It's a little bit of a different story when I don't have to wait tables, but like I'll just be like, oh, I'm so glad to be done. And then the next day, if I'm bored and I have nothing to do, I'm like, well, let's go over, see who's working, and just hang out.
Yeah, let's just hang out.
Yeah. I know a lot of us do that too,
Yeah.
like every, usually...
Some of you, though, are very annoying to wait on, just so you know that.
Some of you, yeah. We won't say any names, but you probably already know who you are anyway.
You probably do. So you, please don't come in on your days off.
Stay home.
But yeah, stay home. Go to a different restaurant.
Go somewhere else.
Yeah, give them the struggle.
We see you enough.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. We do. I have a question for you. So you're from Jersey,
yes.
Right? Okay. What was your favorite restaurant as a kid?
As a kid, you know what? We always went to Chili's when I was young. Yep.
Okay.
And it was so funny. I used to get the same thing every time when I was a young kid. We went to Chili's, and I ordered off the kids menu, and I always got the corn dog.
The corn dog.
The corn dog with French fries.
Chili's had a corn dog.
Chili's had a corn dog on the kids menu, and it was, I don't know why my parents let me do this, but it got to that point where I loved them so much that I always got 2. I always ordered 2 corn dogs. And I can't remember if it was like 2 actual plates, like corn dog and fries.
Yeah.
Or if they just kind of put 2 corn dogs with a side of fries on one plate. But I always remember getting 2.
Interesting.
They were so good. And maybe that's kind of like foreshadowing for how I eat today, because I just eat so much, But I remember we used to go that was kind of like our, when we would go out, it was just kind of a thing we would look forward to. So that was Chili's was always like my favorite place. I haven't been in a long time, but that was the spot. We had one like 10 minutes away from our house. And
Chili's, huh?
Chili's, yeah. I used to love Chili's.
What's your favorite restaurant now?
Now, I don't get out. I don't go out to eat as often, and I don't know if I necessarily have a favorite restaurant because a lot of I've just been, every time I go out, I try to go somewhere new and somewhere different, and it's, a lot of times it's not necessarily like a corporate place or a franchise or a chain where there's a bunch of them that people would know about. I'm also just terrible with favorites, but
I'm over corporate. I try to go to smaller places too.
Well, what's your favorite restaurant? I mean, I figured maybe if I hear you name off a few, I could probably.
I do love my Coral Cafe. Have you ever been?
Coral Cafe, I've not been to, but I know where that is.
It's the best.
Well,
it's
I know what that
24-hour
is.
diner, and they have everything, and it's all delicious. I just went there a couple days ago, and they have pumpkin pancakes that were amazing.
I will say, I think my favorite type of restaurant is a diner.
Oh, I mean, you can't beat a good diner.
Especially from New Jersey. I mean,
that's true.
My first job was at a diner. My first serving job was at a diner.
Really?
It was actually one that was on. I heard it was on Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives at one point.
Oh, nice.
I never actually saw the episode, but I remember a couple of people had told me that, so I was like, all right, well, this must be true. It was a diner, and it was a diner, bar, and lounge. They had also added on a bar and lounge to it, so it was a pretty big place, and it was pretty widely known in our area. It was a very popular place, but diners in general, I think, are my favorite type of restaurant. You can get anything, breakfast, lunch. Diner food is just so great.
It's so great.
It's usually always very good too. There's something about diner food that just like it.
It's like they have moms back there cooking it for you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they hire.
Exactly.
They're like, are you a mother that cooks? Great, you can be hired at this diner.
That's the best way to probably put that. Mm-hmm. Diners. Well, I think that's probably the best answer I could give you to that. Any kind of a diner. Any kind of good diner.
How can you recall how many different serving jobs you've had?
Oh yeah, I've worked in 3 different restaurants, and in 2 of those I've served and bartended. Okay. Where I work right now, I've only served. I've never not bartended there yet.
Yeah. Are they all? Well, you did say a diner was in Jersey. Is this the job that we work at now? Is this your first one in LA?
Yeah, the first 2 were in New Jersey. So the first one was a diner / bar lounge. The second one was just like a franchise.
Oh, okay.
It was just sort of, there were maybe 17 to 20 locations kind of around like the northeast, kind of that area.
What was it?
It's called Houlihan's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think there might be a couple out here too, but it's kind of weird the way the company's divided up. There was like, there was like a company called like AHG or something that owned all of the ones that were by us, and there was like another company that owned some other. I'm not that good with all how that stuff works, but
it's more it's an Irish type.
Sorta, yeah. It was just like a kind of like a little bit of an Irish sort of influence in there, but generally just kind of like just standard American food, just burgers, steaks, salads, appetizers, and so server, and then I upgraded to bartending, and that was my bartending at the diner was okay. It wasn't the best bar at the time, but that bar was very busy, so that's where I got my real bartending experience over there.
How do you feel about having worked at that bar in Jersey, and then where you work now? Like, how does it compare?
Well, every table is a different experience, I feel.
Very true.
Back in New Jersey, it's not as, you get all walks of life back there too, but it's just a different culture. Yeah, it's a different culture.
It's that Midwest life.
Sort of.
Well, more. You're technically, I guess, East Coast, but
northeast, East Coast. Yeah, exactly. So, at the end of the day, besides that, it's all kind of the same shit. Serving is serving. You just kind of like every restaurant's got their way of doing things. They all keep their condiments in a different place.
The only way to get through it is you have to vent it out.
Yeah, well, I love this kind of thing because I've been saying for a while now, since going out to eat and going out for drinks, it's just we all do it. It's such a common. It's such a common activity in terms of like when you're hanging out with your friends or your family. What are you going to do? Well, let's go out to eat. Let's go get a drink. So I always would say that I feel like one day it would be cool if maybe everybody was required to serve in a restaurant for like 6 months to a year to understand, but we don't do that, obviously. And some people don't understand kind of what that's like. Now, I'm not saying, oh, it's the hardest job in the world, whatever. It's really not.
No.
But, we go through a lot of shit that some people don't understand. So to have a podcast like this, I think it's cool because maybe for people to tune in that don't work in restaurants to maybe hear some of these stories, it might kind of open their eyes to what really goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And it might kind of make them think twice about maybe complaining about something right away without thinking about what else might be going on. And not complaining, I'm not one to say, I hate anybody that complains. Of course, if something's not right, you have the right to say something. But there are some really unreasonable people that sometimes don't quite put everything together in their head, and they're kind of like thinking that they're the only one there, and that their server's just kind of like there to wait on them hand and foot and doesn't have anything else going on at all.
Right, and also cooks their food and does everything.
Yeah, they don't know all the behind the scenes. They don't get it. So I actually really genuinely hope that this kind of gets out to a lot of people,
You and me both. You and me both. I agree. I agree. I agree with the habit. I feel like everybody should. I feel like right out of high school, or during college or whatever, you should have to serve for 6 months to a year. You have to understand what it's like for people in the restaurant, because we are humans. We're not robots. They didn't hire mechanical robots to do our job. So you saying whatever you say to us, we're still human beings. We still have emotions. So, I think that people kind of forget that when you're at somebody's place of employment, and you just think, oh, well, they're working, they have to do what I say, listen to me, whatever. And that's not the case at all. We get frustrated, we get upset. We
do. They kind of use, guests a lot of time will use servers as their outlet for their anger for whatever is going on at the time.
Yes.
And and the reason I believe strongly that it would be kind of a cool thing for everybody to work in a restaurant or in some form of hospitality for a short amount of time or whatever, is because, like I said before, it's such like it's just such, there's restaurants and bars everywhere. It's something, it's something that's just integrated in so many people's daily lives.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's almost kind of like, almost like driving. We drive all over the place. You have to know the rules of the road and this and that, and that might be a little bit of an extreme comparison, but you know how that's kind of how we do that. You got to drive for this long with with your permit and this and that, and you get your license and blah blah blah. Well, like maybe an extreme comparison, but that's kind of like the idea I'm getting at. Whereas we're always going out to restaurants, they're all over the place. We should know what it's like from the other side. If you've not done it before, you're not planning to do it. So
very much agree.
Because there's a lot of places that don't pay you hourly for your serving job, they do in California. So
luckily, thank God.
Yeah, thank God. In New Jersey, that's not the case.
Yeah, it's like $2.
$2.13 when I was last there, and you still get taxed because they know that you're leaving with you have to declare your tips and everything. So most of the time, you'll get a check that just is $0, and it'll say this is not a check.
Yeah.
Written across the check. People sometimes won't even open their checks. They'll just grab the envelope. Oh, thanks. They'll rip it and just throw it in the garbage.
Right. Yeah.
So when you have that going on, you're literally just depending on your tips. And when you have people that are just like, oh, this didn't come out right because of this, or that took a little bit longer than I wanted it to, and then they tip you like shit.
Yeah.
There's a difference between, I think, what I think it is? I think people don't understand the difference between, you just getting shitty service.
Right.
And then something happened that's quite not in the server's control.
Right.
And having the capability to be able to determine whether the server is really doing everything that they can under the circumstances to make it right for you, or if they're just actually being a shitty server. Because let's be real, on the other side of things, there are some shitty servers out there too.
My next question, do you feel, because you're a server, do you feel that when you go out, you tend to notice that, our drinks are taking about 10 minutes, it looks slow in here right now, it doesn't seem like...
100%.
You know what I mean? You're kind of like a undercover bossing them at the
100%.
time? Yeah.
You know why? Because for us that are people that don't work in the restaurant industry, they're going out more than they're serving. We are serving and working more than we're going out. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we're always on that side of things. So it's actually weird for me to be sitting down sometimes on the other side. And when I am, I'm almost kind of like, it's almost kind of like, okay, so how are other people doing this? You know, what is it like when I'm sitting down at the table? Like, are other servers getting my drinks out in under a minute, or is it taking a couple minutes? Are they, how often are they checking on me, this and that? And I kind of use that and compare it to, and I kind of gauge how I'm feeling about the experience and compare it to what I'm doing and how people might feel about, you know, their experience with me. So I definitely kind of play a little bit of like an undercover boss type thing when I go out. But I'm also, and like with most servers, where I think we're a little bit more understanding too. So when people are taking a little bit longer, this or that is happening, we can tell. But then at the same time, we can also tell when someone, again, is just a shitty server. You know what I mean? So we know all, we see all, we get it, but we also get it. You know? Like,
exactly. And you know what's frustrating for me is I've been places to where I have had the shittiest service ever, where most people, I would assume, would probably not leave anything, but being a server, knowing what that's like, sometimes I'll tip over 20% to kind of like, in my eyes, throw it in their face to be like, just so you know, I was going to tip you well if you were going to be a good server. But I can never tip less. I can never tip less than 15%, even when the service is terrible. Like, absolutely, where you know it's bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only circumstance where I would probably not tip appropriately would be if I was like seriously like offended by it. If someone was just being blatantly rude to me, you know, if someone's struggling or something's a little bit slow or a little this or that, like, I'm okay. I may say something like, hey, could you check on this? Could you check on that? But like, but I'll always tip. And, you know, I at least tip 20%. For my coworkers, I go more above and beyond. And I used to go,
some of you, you're an asshole. Don't.
Some of you don't. You know, you better work on that because I won't take care of you. But, you know, you all know what it's like. So if that's you and you're complaining about shitty tips, then I don't want to hear you. But I think, for my coworkers, I go above and beyond. And, and I used to go above and beyond at every restaurant I went to. It was like, you're all servers. Well, here's $20 on this $50 check. I don't really do that anymore because I don't have the money for that. But when I go out, I'm always at least tipping 20%. You know what I mean?
I went to Gordon Biersch once. It was 10:30, and they close at 12, mind you. Okay. Sign on the front says serving food till closing, all that stuff. And I was with a couple of friends, and we walked in there, sat in the cocktail area. It was dead, mind you. This guy maybe had 2 tables at the most. We sat down, and it took him a minute to come over, which is, you know, whatever. You're cleaning in the back or whatever. And he, like, walks over to us and sets menus down and is just like, do you guys want to order food? Because if so, you have to put it in now because we're closing. And we were just like, whoa. And he didn't say it in a way where you're like, hey, dude, I'm really stressed. Like, he was so fucking rude about it. And I never do this, but I yelped about it. First of all, we were going to get maybe an appetizer, but we were going to drink. We wanted a couple of drinks. We were just like, we don't know yet. And so he turned around to this other table and said the same thing to them. And then, like, a few minutes later, he came back and he's like, you're reading the wrong side of the menu. And Juliana was looking at the menu, and she's like, well, I just wanted to read, like, what this said. And he's like, we were reading the wrong side. The beer's down the other side. And we were just like, okay, we're going to go. Bye. Like, we're not even going to get anything. Like, if you're gonna act like that, you're lucky to get anything from me.
Yeah, that's one of those scenarios where I said, like, if I actually feel like I'm just being treated like shit.
Yeah.
You know, because, like, hey, man, like, I know what it's like. I get it. You're trying to close up. You're trying to whatever. But, like, it, you know.
But it's an hour and a half before you close.
It's an hour and a half. And don't just be blatantly rude to people. I mean, I've gone up to people and said, hey, just a heads up, we're going to be doing last call in a little bit.
Right.
But, you know, again, it goes back to, like, there's 2 sides to this. This is obviously servers explaining our experiences. But there's also, we're not all saints. There are some of us that just don't quite know how to interact with guests, and sometimes even guests that are actually good customers, good tippers, good whatever, you know. You can even turn them off if you're just a shitty server, have a shitty personality. And that's the thing. I think what it comes down to is what kind of a personality you have too. Like I used to work manager used to tell me, like, he didn't care if people had serving experience or not. He would hire them as a server based on their personalities. I could teach anybody the food. I could teach anybody the computers.
Yeah.
I can't teach somebody personality.
Exactly.
So, if they have a good
100%
personality,
true.
I'll hire. So he would hire servers not based on whether they've served before, just
Right.
based on what he got from them in their interviews. And,
And that says a lot, though, because I feel like people with that kind of personality, that sort of energetic mentality, or like that super personable, they tend to be the ones that are a bit of a better server, They're like, oh, they can handle it or whatever. And then you have the people that have, I've had 6-10 years of experience, and you come in, you're like, it doesn't seem like you've had that experience.
You could have 6-10 years of experience in some shitty ass places where the people that you're taking care of maybe don't care as much, and you kind of like don't really need to communicate with them too much or whatever. And then what does that mean if you go somewhere where you have a different clientele that want to be wine and dine a little bit more, or want to have some more conversation, or you know what I mean? I think in terms of personality and how to treat your guests and talk to your guests is something that's really helped me.
Yeah.
I actually have seen an increase in my tip percentage from this. It's backing away from that. We mentioned it before, that robot mentality, and just talking to them like real people.
Yes.
Like when I go, even when when I'm talking to my guests, I'm more so not talking to them as an employee, but more so just like almost like a friend.
Yes.
Like,
yep.
How are you? You doing all right? And kind of even the words that I choose to use and the sentences, the way that I say things to them, it's more. It's not so like, may I present you with a drink to start? It's more just like I'm kind of just like.
Oh, my pleasure for doing that.
Exactly. It's not robotic. It's very genuine, and people kind of connect with you more. They feel more comfortable with you.
Yes.
And they feel they feel almost like your friend rather than you're this robot that just is like programmed to say these things at this time in this way. And there's a lot of restaurants that want you to be that way.
Yes.
The first job I ever had was super like that,
really?
and I couldn't stand it. Because it just wasn't me.
Yeah.
And I anytime the owner would come in and expect us to be that way, I didn't know what to do because it just felt fake.
It's so fake. It's so forced.
It's very forced, and people love it. And so I tried adapting that. I mean, when it gets late enough, over when I'm working in the cocktail area, I start cursing with my guests.
I always do.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they just laugh with me,
it.
and they love it.
Yeah.
They love it, So it's just I think the more real you are, the more they respect you, the more comfortable they are with you.
Yeah.
And just communicating in general, kind of on another topic. I mean, just when things are just not quite going right in the restaurant, I think a lot of people tend to shy away from their guests and like not look at them like, they hide, and that's what pisses them off the most, because they feel like you forgot about them. You just got to go up to them and say, hey, this is what's happening. I just want to let you know I didn't forget about you. We're kind of going through this right now, but we got a good team. We're working on it. So just thanks for being patient. You just thanks for being so patient.
Yeah.
You've been super cool.
Yeah.
And they love that shit.
They love it.
So I mean, that's personality. You know, it really makes or breaks kind of your reputation at a restaurant as a server. You know what I mean?
I also find that owning up to your mistakes, because a lot of time, if something is either wrong or missing, I'll tell my guests, I'll be like, wait a minute, let me check and make sure I didn't put it in wrong, just to like cover my base. And if I did, I'm like last night I had a guy who he ordered a beer from me, and I forgot to put it in and went to check on the table, and the wife was like, oh, can he get his beer? And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then instead of, the bar didn't make it or whatever, I was like, I'm so sorry. And then I always like have fun with them, and then they just seem to appreciate it a little bit more. The only thing with me though is that like the more fun I have with my table in my mind, which I shouldn't do, I kind of assume a better tip, and more times than not that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's probably better than what they were initially going to leave, but it's not as good as what I hope for. But
well, you got to read your table, so everyone's different, and that kind of, you just sort of, as you're going along with the experience, you sort of kind of gauge what kind of people these are.
Bartender, I need a drink.
By the way, today's drink for our bartender segment, we're drinking Don Julio and Squirt.
Yes.
It's delicious. It's
great.
It's great. It's like a classic Paloma, not like our disgusting Paloma that we make at our job.
That I have to keep sending back. Because nobody likes it.
Nobody likes it. If you were to ask anybody what a traditional Paloma is, it's tequila and Squirt. That is what it is. So why are we... Yeah, that is what it is. So why are we making it So disgusting.
It's like, oh yeah, I have to, and I'm super real about that stuff too. Like if someone's like, "What do you think about this?" or "Can I get that?" I'm just like,
oh, people appreciate.
Don't get that,
yeah.
please. And people like thank me. They're like, "Thank you. I appreciate you looking out for me."
Yeah.
And there's two reasons I do that. Number one, if I just think it's bad, I'm not gonna lie. I'm just gonna tell them it's bad.
Yeah.
But also, if it's just something, and this kind of sounds terrible, this probably isn't really, putting me in a good light or anything, but, like, if it's just something that, like, sometimes if I'm in a mood or I'm really busy or there's just something that I'm lazy that day, if it's just something where it's just a lot of upkeep, a lot of things to make or to do, I'm just like, you don't want to get that. That's bullshit.
That's
like,
what I talk about coffee.
Coffee, we don't have cappuccinos at my place. We don't have hot chocolate.
No,
we don't even when the machine's broke.
Yeah, oh, no, this is what I tell them, because I've had people ask me, and they're like, do you have, like, espresso? And I go, or they'll look in the menu, and they'll be like, oh, it's this cappuccino. I go, I press a button, and powder comes out. That's what that is.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh.
Yeah,
and
there's two sides. The one, on the one hand, it actually is probably terrible. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I don't know. But
coffee sucks.
It probably does suck, yeah. But on the other side, it's just like I really don't want to go and put all this stuff together, So I'm just like, you know what?
Steps that is?
It's a lot of steps. I mean, that's me just being lazy. But it's just kind of a funny thing to throw in there.
No,
you know what I mean?
Same.
But even going back to the communication about communicating with your guests when things go wrong, and you were mentioning how, like, you kind of call yourself out when you mess up. I think that's a super important thing, too, because when you try to hide that you've messed up or try to bullshit, I think a lot of people can see through that, and sometimes I'll go to a table and I'll see an empty glass of something that they had asked for a long time ago.
Right.
And I'll just right away call myself out before they even say anything. I might just be like, oh, you know what? You actually asked me for this water a long time ago. I'm really sorry. I'm going to go get that right now. And they just appreciate it when you're honest. You're like, because like when you say, hey, you know what, honestly, I forgot about it. A normal person knows that we're human and mistakes happen. Right. And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what are they going to say? Yeah, you did forget about my water, you fucking dickhead.
Right.
No, they're just like, oh, no, it's cool. And then you bring the water out or whatever it is, and, and everything's cool. You're just owning up to your mistake. You're being a real person, like we talked about before, and they like it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it shows your character too. Like, you're not, like, I'll blame the kitchen when it's the kitchen, but if it's me, it's on me. I'm not gonna, the kitchen doesn't deserve to have the, what if they're a Yelper? But if it's my fault, it's my fault, and I think owning up to it rather than like trying to just play it off is definitely a better. People, they love honesty. They really do. We have a drink at our work. It's a sparkling water, and they put cucumber and mint in it. And people order that, and they ask me how it is, and I go, look, it tastes like a foot. Don't get it.
Me too.
Yeah.
I don't like either of those sparkling drinks.
No.
And it's for the same thing. A, it doesn't taste that good, and B, it's annoying to make. So
it's yeah, and it's like, and I've told that to so many people, and they just start laughing and like, thanks for your honesty. And I'm like, it doesn't matter whether you get this or you get that. I'd rather you get what you're going to eat rather than have me running back and forth to get you stuff that you want that tastes better, that I know tastes better.
Exactly. So, at the end of the day, I'm trying to give you a good experience, so why would I make you get something that I personally don't think is that good?
You're an asshole.
So it was about 10:45 at night. We close at 1, but it's 10:45 at night. We obviously cut the floor because it's not busy enough to keep a full staff on. And, of course, Burbank football lets out, and they flock to the restaurants. And what's worse than having to serve Dodger fans is having to serve a bunch of piece of shit high school kids. And,
Tell me about it.
Unless they have their parents with them, then it's good. But
you know you're going to get paid.
Yeah, parents are great. But when it's just your piece of shit high school students, they fucking suck.
I don't know why that's allowed even.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I don't either. I was standing at the host desk, and he had told me that one of the guests had walked in, said they were a party of 20, and the host was like, okay, well, it's going to be like 20 to 25 minute wait. I don't have anywhere to put you, and I don't have a server to take you right now. And the guy, who, mind you, I'm pretty sure he was a high school student because he was with a bunch of high school kids, started cursing at the host because he had to wait, saying, fuck you, what the fuck, you don't want any of this fucking money, this is bullshit. Still waited, and at this time I was standing at the host desk. And he told me the story, and I was like, oh, well, who's the guy? And he's like, oh, he's like standing right there. And so finally their table was ready. They had to call 2 servers back on, which, if you're a server and you get cut and they ask you to come back on, it's like the fucking worst. Oof. So he's finally like, okay, party of 20. And the guy's like, fucking bullshit. And I just look over at the guy and I go, buddy, it's a restaurant. It's how it works. He goes, you don't want to fucking make money? And I was like, it's how it works, man. It doesn't have to do with making money.
That's just, something like that is ignorance. Just straight up ignorant. It's just straight up ignorance. It's just, I mean, it's almost like useless to try to even humor somebody by arguing with them, because it's just the lack of mental capacity to understand what is going on in the restaurant and why you're waiting is just like, it's just another level of stupid. People like that are like not even worth entertaining or giving them your time. It's just like, look, you wait or you get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, and it's like, you are a party of 20 walking in without a reservation. You didn't even call ahead to let us know. You just walked in with 20 people expecting to be sat right away. You couldn't do that if we had a full staff on.
Provide me a solution, please. I would have been like, tell me what you'd like us to do.
Yeah, what would you
want me to pick these people up out of their chairs and just clear a table for you?
It's either you sit right here in the host area for 20 minutes and wait, or you sit at a table and wait for 20, 25 minutes for a server to be able to approach you. What would you like?
That's the thing about situations like that. There are just, I mean, it's like, there are some arguments are so stupid that you don't even know how to argue them. I mean, literally, if you actually took the time to sit down with a person like that and say, okay, so this is what I have. I have a restaurant full of people.
Right.
Now you tell me what you'd like me to do. They wouldn't be able to answer you.
Yeah.
They're just mad. They just want to be mad. People that want to be mad like that, they just love confrontation and they love causing problems. And they almost sometimes come in knowing that they're going to cause a problem. They're just itching for it. They feed off of that shit.
Well, I think too, I think a lot of places, like we work at a corporate place. I think a lot of people know going into a corporate place, they're like, oh, if I complain, I'll get free shit. People go looking for that.
Especially at corporate places.
Especially at corporate place, which is bullshit. It just makes me it makes me hate people in general, because they're just so rude and like they aren't sympathetic towards what we have to deal with. You're mad about not being sat. Well, I have 5 tables over here that are mad because their food's not out yet. I have people that are mad because
you're mad.
The TV screen's not on right.
Join the club.
Yeah.
You join the club of mad people here right now.
You're not the first person. Yeah.
I got to take care of this mad person before I get to your issue.
Yeah.
Nothing like a good mad restaurant guest. All right.
Right. Nothing like it. Yeah. Hey, by the way, you're the only thing that matters in this whole world. So.
Oh, you're mad. I'm mad too. I'm going to be late on my rent and my girlfriend broke up with me or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm also mad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm upset because I have to work 6 days and I still don't make enough to cover my rent because all you pieces of shit come into this restaurant and don't tip me right.
I'm just mad because I did a party of a $500 check and I got $10 on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which happens very often. I've seen that, especially where we work.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very often.
Very often, because we don't get to add gratuity.
And there are some places that you don't get to choose what you tip out. There are some places that just automatically tell you what to tip out based on your sales.
Or take the money from you.
Just take it from. They basically do. That's the last 2 places I worked at. So where we work now, we get to choose what we tip out. And for anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's essentially you're giving a small portion of your tips to bussers or bartenders or food runners or whoever it is in your restaurant that's also kind of assisting you.
Yeah.
Where we work, they kind of give you the option to choose what you want to do. It's usually there's like a standard percentage and you sort of choose, but people remember if you're taking care of them, then they're taking care of you. If you're not, then they're not going to take care of you during your shift. But where I used to work, it was just a set amount. They just the cash out, when you printed it out, it would just calculate what your sales were, and if it was 5% of your sales, if your sales are $1,000, 5%, you're tipping out $50 with your cash out.
Even if you didn't make that.
Even if you didn't make a bunch of money. Now, it's you'd have to get some really shitty tips throughout the whole night for that to really affect you. But I mean, if you think about it, if you have a really terrible night, you just happen to have a whole bunch of people not tip you well.
Right.
You have $1,000 in sales. Let's say you only have $140 in tips, which is pretty low for $1,000 in sales.
Right.
Very low. and now your tip out is 5%, which I've seen it at a place where it's 5%. You're giving $50 away. Now you're leaving with $90.
Jesus.
You know what I mean?
No way.
And you can't even make the choice to be like, hey, I had a shit night. I'll get you next time. And
right,
you just give me a little bit less, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Which is the unfortunate part. I on Friday night. No, last night was Friday. On Thursday night, I had $1,000 in sales, and I walked out with $140, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I should have made.
Be the case.
Yeah, and it's because I just had shitty people come in. Listen, $5. Do you know what a $5 tip? What that should go? What check that should go on? It should go on a $20 check. Okay, that's what that should go on. A $10 tip should go on a $50 check.
It's very easy. It's very easy math. You basically just start from, the way I see it is like, if you start from $10, right? You know, 20% of $10 is $2.
Right.
So what you just kind of work your way up the chain. $10, $2 tip. $20, you double that, $4 tip.
Yeah.
30, and you kind of just have it's like a chart that you memorize.
Yeah.
$10 check is to $2 tip. $20 check is to $4 tip.
Yep.
30 to 6, 40 to 8, 50 to 10, 100 to 20, 200 to 40.
Yes.
And you just gauge.
Easy.
That's kind of how I do it. You know what I mean, in my head.
I think that people don't know how to do math enough, and instead of doing the correct math, it's easier for them to look at the amount they owe and the total and just be like, my bill was $73. I'm going to put 80 because that's how I know how to do it.
$80. Yeah. Keep the change. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, thank you so much for that $6 and something change tip on a $70 check. How do you think going in somewhere and you're drinking and you're racking up $100 bill and you leave, $7? How do you think that that's okay?
Well, the thing with that is I think there's a lot of things that contribute to that decision, and sometimes it's just plain, just being cheap and people knowing what they're doing and just doing it anyway.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of other circumstances too. I think sometimes maybe people just don't know, which is why I said people should maybe have the experience.
Yes.
And then sometimes people just don't know. It's which I don't think is always, it could be one of any of these things, and I don't. Sometimes you can kind of feel if they're just assholes or if they just genuinely don't know.
Right.
I did this thing for a while where I tried to believe that everybody that was tipping me shitty was maybe in a really difficult place in their life, and they just were going through a lot of shit, and this couple just wanted just to go out one night, and they just wanted one time to feel normal and go out and do something fun, and they just didn't have enough money to leave home, so they shorted you a little bit. And I try sometimes to give people the benefit of the doubt, but that's hard to do when it happens as often as it does in some places, and sometimes you can tell no, you have money, you're just being, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
then you should have been more conscious as to what you were ordering.
There's a lot of different things that I think could be the reason to that, and I think it's good to touch on that because I think it wouldn't be right for us to just go off and say that we're always right as servers, you're always wrong as a guest.
Right.
I think it's good to just kind of bring light to everything that could possibly be going on, whether it's in our favor or in the guest's favor, and you just never know sometimes. But I mean, it is kind of annoying when you have a $100 or a $200 check and you're getting $10. You know what I mean? Or $200 check, they're giving you $15.
Right.
It's the math is so off there. People I think sometimes think that the tip kind of caps out at $20.
Yeah.
And then when they just keep racking their check up, it's well, here's $20. Look at this crispy $20 bill.
Thank you.
That's not how it works, brother.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I wish we were able to be excuse me, was there something that I did wrong to where you didn't like my service that you didn't tip? And even if they were no, I left you a tip, and you're yeah, but it wasn't the equivalent of what a standard tip was, even if it, because I feel most people don't even tip 10%. I just want to be just so they know for next time that, maybe I should pay attention to my check or the math or whatever.
Yeah, it gets difficult. That goes back to, whether you're working in a corporate place or a private place, because I've never worked in a place that was kind of a mom and pop, restaurant or just a private, a one-off spot where you can do that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's always been corporate, restaurants where you're kind of just have to go into this mode of guest is always right. Whatever guest says, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And I think that's a whole other thing that I've always been frustrated with, because when you work in a corporate place, you kind of have to sacrifice this part of yourself that kind of reminds you that you are still a human being and that you're a person and that you have feelings and that you do have a value and people say some terrible shit to you. I mean, we both have that experience and you kind of just have to sit there like, okay, I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Right,
you work in like some one-off place on the side of the road that's like really popular maybe and just has an owner that just like, doesn't give a shit. Someone comes in and treats you like shit, he or she'll just walk up and be like, get the fuck out of here. Don't come back. You know what I mean? I don't care.
God, trying to 86 people at our restaurant is like trying
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. It's crazy like how you have to literally come in and like
physically assault
someone to get 86. I mean, I've seen people I've seen racists come in, and say terrible things, and I'm still seeing them come back in. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. I try to keep my cool, but if someone's just being blatantly like a rude human being,
right?
I will speak my mind. I will stand up for myself, but I'll do so in a way where if I'm questioned by management or something, where I can say, hey, I didn't say anything that was out of line.
You're an asshole.
I was waiting on a younger couple, maybe my age, maybe a little bit younger, probably a little bit younger, so I want to say in their early 20s.
Okay.
And it was a guy and a girl, and I came up to them and I asked what they wanted, and the girl wasn't saying anything, wasn't looking at me, wasn't doing anything, and I was talking to the fella, and he said, I want this, blah, blah, blah. And then I looked at the girl and I said, what would you like? And this was the first thing she had said. I mean, like, if she said anything else during my visit, I didn't hear it and I didn't know, and she must have thought it and thought that I could communicate via, like, telekinesis or something, or, like, she just whispered it and thought I could hear that. But she didn't say anything, and I said, what would you like? And she just immediately, the first thing she did was look at me and said, I said I wanted a grilled chicken Alfredo. Didn't you hear me? And I said, no, I said, I didn't hear you. You didn't say anything the whole time.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, maybe you should listen to me. Maybe you should listen a little closer, something along those lines. And I, like, if someone's going to be like that, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, right away, miss. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Like, yeah. I'm sorry, but that's just not how you treat another human, regardless of where you're at. And I told her, I said, why are you being so hostile right now? What is your problem?
Yeah.
Why are you talking to me like this? I didn't call her names. I didn't yell at her. I didn't get angry with her. Why are you talking to me this way? And she said something else, and I said something else, probably along the lines of, this is the first thing you said to me the whole visit,
right?
And you're yelling at me. And then she said, "I want another server," like gladly. And I walked away. I didn't put their orders in, whatever. I just told another server to take care of them. And that was it.
Yeah.
And stuff like that is, the whole idea of the guest is always right is like if they're saying something is cold or something tastes weird, like I won't argue with them and say no, that's not cold. Right. Whatever. You don't like it. Okay, sure. Let me just get that. But if someone's blatantly rude to me like that, then that's a different story. I don't really allow people to talk to me that way. I don't care where I'm working or if it's a corporate place or whatever. I still think these restaurants should kind of have your back in those situations because, the guest is always right. I don't think it plays I don't think it has that strong of a role in a situation like that where someone is just being completely rude to you for no reason. Yeah. We're still, like we mentioned before, we're still people here. So.
Yes. No, I mean, we do the job because it is really good money, even when we have our shitty days. I mean, I can say for myself, for sure, the reason I still work where we work is because of who we work with. I mean, that's really, like, what makes a lot of it. We work with all of our close friends. You start working there, and within, like, a month or so, you're kind of adopted into this big family.
It's the closest work family I've ever had, for sure.
Me too. Same.
Where we work right now is the closest work family I've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, I see the people at work more than I see my sister, and I live with her, and it's like, I love it. And it honestly, it makes going into work, because nobody wants, who wants to work? You want to just live life and have fun, but it makes work kind of like, sometimes kind of like a hangout, like when you're having a shitty night or whatever, you step into the kitchen and somebody's going to be joking or laughing about something, and you just kind of like get to feel it out and, be like, oh, okay.
I think that's another part of the restaurant experience is you kind of have your group of friends and you're all sort of like hanging out outside of work and there's always some kind of drama or some kind of story or something everyone's talking about. It's like, You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, it becomes like work, but it also becomes like this, like, it becomes like a high school sort of almost, you know what I mean? No matter who's there and how old you are.
The drama travels faster than high school in a restaurant.
Restaurants are just, man, like, it's just like savages.
Behind the scenes, what the guests don't see, it is some shit.
We go out, we get fucked up.
Yeah.
Everyone's just sucking each other's dicks, and, you know, like, just, like, man. Like,
there's a lot of that was
just
actually
wasted, and, you know.
That was another one of my topics is dating and hooking up at work. And now, mind you, you're dating Raquel, so you don't have. I mean, you have probably hookup stories, but right now you are in a relationship with another fellow coworker of ours. But what was it like? Because you've hooked up with some people at work. What was it like hooking up with them and then having to like see them the next day or that thing without actually, let's say, dating them? More like a, you know, we were at a party, you got fucked up, and something happened.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there at any of my jobs. I mean, you know, where that's happened, and I think that just kind of comes down to, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to handle that, but it's almost sort of similar to, how do I put this? Well, I guess just in any situation, whether it's this or with guests or whatever we're talking about, just always just kind of being cool and being real and being genuine is the best thing. And that stuff gets kind of sticky because you're mixing like personal things with work and blah blah blah, and you know, it is what you make it. If you want to go in and be awkward, you could be awkward. If you want to go in and just do your job, your job. I mean, you know, I happen to be in a relationship right now, like you said, with someone from where that happens. That's a common thing. Like people, I mean, serving jobs, any job, you start working there, you're meeting new people, you're around new friends. I mean, like I said, this is the closest work family I've ever had. This place kind of saved me almost, because when I first got the job there, I was like only 6 months at a Los Angeles, and I was thinking about moving home.
Oh, really?
Because I had nobody, I didn't know what was going on, and then I started working there, and people started inviting me out, and I started feeling like I was part of something. I was like, oh, these are such cool kids, I love these people.
And everybody's so talented.
Everyone's so talented, and it's really cool, and it's kind of like inevitable, like, you know, if you're single, or if you're whatever you're doing, I mean, like, you know, you might run into someone, and just, and things happen, and then sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it's weird. I mean, you just kind of like, it's just like anything else. You just gotta figure out how you want to handle it. I think it's only awkward. It's awkward depending on who's involved and kind of what happened and what led to that and what kind of happened afterwards, and you know, we've all been there, and it definitely sometimes you know, makes things a little bit weird, but right now I happen to be in a very good place with a very good person, so like, I think that's kind of like, you know, the best possible scenario when in terms of like hooking up or dating or whatever. And sometimes it's not, because I've also been where I've started dating someone and then it didn't go so well, and then it stops, and then it's even weirder because you've been in a relationship with someone and then you're not, and you're still working there, and you know, then what do you do? And I'm if there's anything I'm really uncomfortable with, it's mixing personal things at work, because I'm just not I don't like to get into that kind of stuff. I'm a very non-confrontational kind of person. So especially at work, it's like I like to leave that stuff aside. I don't like to make people feel uncomfortable. So, you know, but I've seen it before. I've seen things happen between people. I've seen, you know, it's just part of the drama. It's part of the excitement, you know?
It is. It's what makes working in a restaurant so fun. I mean, the drama, because it, you know, especially in our restaurant, I mean, it doesn't just end with just the team members. Managers sometimes are involved, or, you know, whatever, and
I've seen that too at some previous places. I've seen some really weird shit, you know what I mean? It's kind of crazy, you know, no matter who you are or what position you're in, you always kind of fall into that trap, and you know, it's just you can't get away from it. It just makes things more, because you're a family. I mean, most restaurants I've been, you're a family. You're always around each other. It's, you know, you're always hanging out, and you know, there's stuff that goes on outside of work.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yes. So when that's going on, you know, when you're at work, it's kind of like being at school. Like, you know, like, ooh, what happened over the weekend?
All the gossip starts trickling around.
And you can't, like, as soon as if one person knows at a restaurant, like
Everybody.
everybody's gonna know. You can't
Yep.
hide shit from anybody.
Nope.
That's my favorite place to be, the
Yes.
sidelines.
Yes.
I love being on the sidelines,
Yeah.
and it's just Raquel's the same way. My girlfriend, she agrees. She loves being on the side because it's just like, it sounds kind of terrible, but like you kind of love the drama because you love the
Yes.
entertainment, but you don't want to be part of it. You just want to
Exactly.
sit there and just like, you want to be the person that people vent to. Like,
Yes.
oh, really, that happened? Well, why did
Yeah.
that happen? Oh, really?
I won't tell anyone, I swear.
He sucked her dick? Like, real? Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Well, I won't tell anybody, and
Yeah.
I don't spread anything or any of that stuff, but it's just cool to. It's just like it's more fun to be. You tell people.
I tell only my close friends, mostly, but oh yeah, I mean I love to hear it, and I'll tell people who I'm comfortable telling, and I hope that they don't spread it, but I have to get it off my chest. Otherwise, I'm like sitting there like I'm like itching like a heroin addict. I'm like, please.
Sniff this shit out. It's like sometimes you don't tell anybody, and you're just like, shit gets around. It's
or
crazy.
there's people who just want to vent to everyone and make it seem like they're not venting to everyone, and they're just like, look, I'm not telling anyone, but here, and then all of a sudden you're like, everybody knows about that, and I didn't tell anybody about it. And you're like, oh, because they told everyone.
Because they did. It's just how it goes. It's part of that server life.
Yeah.
It's part of that server life. I think every restaurant I've ever been in has been the same. It's been like, oh, like, that happened. Well, you work at a restaurant. You don't think anybody was going to find out. The hard part about that is when you start dating somebody at work, is there are a lot of people that start dating at work that can't work together.
Yes.
They start, and there's nothing more uncomfortable than like being with a fight in your significant other, being in a fight with your significant other, and you're at work, and like you're not talking, and then like everybody knows you're fighting, and it's just like your personal business is just out there, and like there's this tension. I hate that shit so much, and. I mean, that happens. You start working, you meet a bunch of new people, and you're like, oh, especially if you're single, you're like, oh, look at all these new opportunities. And, you get yourself, and even in the past, I've gotten myself into situations where I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? There are the select few people that literally can just come in and are just like, boom, they're focused, and they're just like money, and they leave, and you know what I mean? But some of us, we like to party, we like to hang out. We like to drink real palomas with tequila and squirt, and you'll be like, oh, what a shitty day, and then you'll get off before we close, and then some. I think one of my favorite things is when, people start staying afterwards, and they'll kind of gather at a table, and then you'll have like a crew of like our people, you know what I mean, that start hanging out, like but like it's cool, like whether like I'm serving or I'm part of the group that's sitting down.
Right.
It's just reminds you like kind of the some of the best things that come with the job, which is the friendships that you build and the sense of family, especially out here in Los Angeles, where a lot of people are coming from different places where they're not with their families and their original friends anymore. So to build a new network of a new foundation
as an
of people,
adult too, which is
crazy.
Yeah.
So building that new foundation, that new network, whether it's just friends or maybe you find a relationship that you're really comfortable in or whatever, it's very heartwarming, and it keeps your spirits kind of afloat, while you're doing your thing out here in LA,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the after work drinks where you go and you kind of just release the night's stress, and you talk about it and you drink, and by the end of the night you're not talking about it and you're just having a good time.
Bullshitting. You spent the whole night being all like uptight and you're like server, mode, and then you get to sit down at a table and get taken care of. And, I think restaurants like that that stay open later are grateful to be around other restaurants that close earlier, because they get us that come in, and most of the time with that situation you have, they get taken care of, because like we're their regulars, we also are restaurant workers, we get it, so it's
and they know, and at that point when you see somebody walk in with a black button down and black pants, you're like, probably a restaurant.
I got you. You're okay. I'll take care of them. You know what I mean?
But all the people that work in restaurants, like, it's kind of like this camaraderie you have, even with people you don't really know, but you go in and you're like, hey, don't worry, I'm a server, I get it. And
you get it, exactly. 100%.
Unless you're those pieces of shit that come in and you say you're a server and you still tip like shit and act like an asshole, then fuck you. But
who are you? Why you don't even deserve your job?
Right? Oh, a bunch of assholes, if you ask me.
Please.
Yo, break.
All right, I'm going to read this one by some chick who gave it 1 star. Oh, BJ's. I loved you in my youth. Many high school and college memories involve your Pazookies, but you just don't stand up to the test of time.
Okay.
First of all, this location has valet parking for $4.50, and they drove my car 2 parking spaces to park.
Welcome to
Park
Los
it.
Angeles.
Yeah, and by the way, that's not in our control at all. That is the city of Burbank. If you want to take that up with someone, take it up with them. We didn't ask to have a valet. We didn't ask to have that. They make us
That's
do it.
irrelevant in the Yelp review, okay? That's just
Yeah.
a lot of places you go to is going to have that type of deal. So,
Yeah.
try going somewhere in like Sherman Oaks or Studio City where you got to park on the goddamn street.
Right. And if that's why you're giving less stars, then you're an idiot. Okay. We had to wait 30 minutes for a table, and they didn't even seem that busy. Okay, well, who are you to judge? How do you know how busy we are? If it may not seem that busy, but there's only 3 servers on, how do you know? You don't know. You don't know how busy we are.
They don't.
Once we did sit, our server was nowhere to be found. Consistently. My husband ordered the prime rib special, and that was a mistake. The prime rib was incredibly overcooked and dry, and the sides were lacking in flavor. Well, I wish you would have specified how your husband ordered his steak, because I guarantee you probably ordered it medium well done.
Yeah, we usually recommend medium rare on that type of thing.
Yeah. I had the barbecue deep dish pizza, and it was also bland. I find that a little hard to believe.
I mean, yeah, this is a lot of a matter of opinion, yeah.
Yes.
Because, like, there's stuff on that. There's cheese. There's barbecue sauce. There's chicken. There's this. There's that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
I'm sorry that you were looking for a explosion in your mouth, but that's what your boyfriend's for.
ha!
And then
That was sexual.
It was. We then ended with chocolate chips Pazookie, which I was so sure, caps lock, so sure, was going to be amazing. But it's a hot cookie with ice cream. So how can you mess that up? Well, it turns out you can serve a lukewarm cookie, and it just kind of kills the whole vibe.
I will say sometimes when things are busy and it takes a little bit longer for things to come out, maybe the cookie sits there for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Okay? And it doesn't come out extremely hot, like it just came out of the oven.
Right.
Okay? I mean, like, we're talking about a lukewarm cookie versus
Right.
a flaming hot cookie.
Right.
And we're getting very upset and we're writing a Yelp review and this and that. And it's just
Right.
like, I just think it's funny because, okay, whatever. You wanted a really, really hot cookie and you got a lukewarm one instead. I mean,
Right.
Me personally, my opinion in this matter, okay, maybe you got a lukewarm cookie.
Right.
But you seem super upset.
Yeah.
You seem like you're really upset about this lukewarm cookie. And, it's just like you're just really devastated. And there are people that have cancer.
Yeah.
And it's just like, there are people that have it so much worse. And you are so upset that you went to a restaurant and you got a lukewarm cookie
Right.
instead of a super hot cookie. And you
Right.
were so mad that you want to worsen the reputation of this place because of that. Well,
Right.
I don't know, all this stuff, the more I live, the more I realize everything is just a matter of opinion and perception.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
if you think it's a good enough reason for you to be really angry and to write a Yelp review, then go right ahead. Me
Right.
particularly, I don't fret this shit. I don't really fret that stuff that much. If
Yeah.
something comes out, we're at a restaurant, it doesn't have that much flavor. All right, that wasn't that good.
Right.
All right, maybe I just won't get that next time, or maybe I just
Exactly.
won't come here again.
Yeah.
People are just so quick to just be like, I'm so mad, and I'm so offended that I did not walk in here and, there weren't people bowing down and there wasn't a
Right.
red carpet
Yeah.
to greet me, and you know what I mean? I wasn't treated like, God's gift to mankind.
Right.
So I'm going to write a Yelp review. It just seems silly when I read these reviews. If I read a review where it was like, this server came up and told me that they wanted to fuck my girlfriend in front of me, that's a different story. I would
Right.
100% write a Yelp review
Right.
and probably a letter to corporate. But I mean, some of these things, it's just that's the thing about Yelp reviews that get me. It's just you know what I mean? Just a lot of them are just very opinion based. It's like,
Yeah.
I didn't like this food.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think I came in and, this was not as hot as I wanted it to be.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas some people will get that same Pazookie that's lukewarm and they're like, oh my gosh, that was so good.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Yelp reviews and guests that have these complaints and this and that. It's all opinion based.
Yes.
And whereas if you read a Yelp review where you're like, the server came up to me and then literally for an hour didn't come back to me, or
Right.
maybe they were just they were super rude and they said this mean thing and that
Right.
mean thing. That's a different story. But like a lot of the Yelp reviews are just super like, oh well, I had to wait 25 minutes and they told me it was going to be 15
Right.
minutes. You know what I mean? Or I got this thing and didn't have the right seasoning, and it said it had this sauce, but I thought the sauce tasted like this, and it really tasted like this.
Yeah.
You know, this is all opinion-based shit.
People get very powerful behind a phone or a computer. That's why Yelp reviews are so, to me, they're just entertaining at this point, because it's like you feel so powerful behind that computer while you're typing it in, yet come in and say that to one of us, and then let's go over how your time here was actually spent and how it went, and then we'll see like how strongly you feel about this stuff. You know, but
I think if people were a little bit, I think if they were a little bit more, a little bit nicer in their reviews, more just honest, and by nicer, I actually think I mean more honest, just more like, I went there, I didn't really like the beers, I liked this, I think that wasn't that good, this was the experience I had, but people are just so fast to be like, oh, this was shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that tasted so bad. Oh, that person was an asshole. Like when people have a bad experience, they just want to blow it up.
Yep.
When they have a good experience, it's a couple sentences like, really great service. This was good. Blah blah blah. It's not as fun to be nice. You know what I mean? But like when something goes wrong, they want to write like 3 paragraphs like what you just read.
And you know what's the most entertaining thing to me is that they post these reviews thinking they have so much power. They're like, oh my god, we're gonna get this place shut down, and it's just like, guess what? We're just as busy as we ever were, so your Yelp review can just get shoved right up your ass.
Yeah,
it's so irrelevant. You're gonna get a courtesy card for $10, and we're gonna say come back in and hope it's better.
And you are gonna come back in.
You're gonna come back in.
You know how many times people are like, oh well, this sucks, and then you see them again the next week, they come right back.
Dining out tip of the week.
What I'd say is this. I'd say definitely remember that most of the time you are not the only table that your server's taking care of.
Right.
Keep in mind that there's a lot of stuff that goes into giving you a good experience. There's a lot of different steps. Yeah. Getting you sat, getting you greeted, having your food made, this and that. And that's happening multiple times throughout the entire night with a lot of different people. But also remember that your server is a person. Yes. They're a person with feelings and emotions. They go back to a family. They go back to a career or to a dream or to a this or to a that, whatever.
Yeah.
Just like you. You know what I mean? We're trying our best to give you the best service that we can. Some servers are really good. Some servers are really shitty. And there's all sorts of servers in between. You know what I mean? Treat your servers the way you would treat other people. You know what I mean? Whether they were your servers or not. And know that this is our job, and we're doing the best that we can. I mean, you can tell when someone is a bad person, or when they're a good person, or when they're trying their best and when they're not. You can tell. Look past just open your mind a little bit. Look past just the experience there. Look past the fact that, if your drink took a little bit longer than it should have, okay?
Yeah. Don't
just jump to this sucks, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Give it a minute, okay? Have your server come back. Maybe remind them, oh, may I have this? Oh, I just need this is all, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's all. People make mistakes. We're all human. It's okay. No restaurant is going to be a perfectly fine-tuned machine that's going to run. We all shoot for that. Every restaurant shoots for that, but things happen. We're human at the end of the day.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And if you understand that and you work with your server, it's probably just going to make for a better experience for you overall. If you're not happy, don't come back.
Yeah.
Don't go back. Don't look for bad experiences.
Right.
Don't look for a reason to start something up. You know what I mean? It's just be chill, man. This is life. There are people, if you're going out, if you have the money to go out to a restaurant, I mean, you got it pretty good.
Yeah.
There's some people with some bigger problems, people that can't afford to go out to a restaurant at all. Evaluate your server.
Right.
See, are they working hard? Are they running around? Is something else going on?
Right.
It sucks. I know when you go out and you want a good experience, sometimes things happen and it's bad, but I've seen really good servers struggle and be in the weeds and have issues where they're oh my gosh, I've got so many tables, this person called out and I have a huge section now, I don't know what to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And are they bad servers? No, but just sometimes that happens and it just fucks your night up.
Yeah. One I want to say thank you, Diggs, for being on the podcast
I
today.
want to say thank you, Heather, for bringing me on. This has been a lot of fun.
Of course. It was a lot of fun. I can't wait to put this out. Anything you want to plug? Anything you got coming up? You want to tell your Instagram handle, your Facebook handle, your Twitter handle?
Yeah, I mean, hey, you know, I'm primarily a drummer. I'm a musician out here in LA. Just like a lot of other people, we're all chasing something. I'm a drummer. You can follow me at Mike on Drums on Instagram. You know, if you like anything about music, I've got a band called the Gutter Daisies. We're constantly playing, and I'm doing all sorts of stuff, and I work with a lot of talented people. So, yeah, I highly recommend just, you know, looking up and getting into anybody that, if you're listening to this podcast consistently, look into the people that are coming onto this show, including Heather, because, you know, everybody is super interesting and super talented. So, you know,
yes, they are.
I'd say that, and just be good to everybody that you come across with. Just spread good energy. We need more good energy in the world.
We do. Agreed. All right. Well, you guys have a great rest of your day. We're gonna go to work a little drunk.